All right, what is going on, Patriots Nation? This is Jason and Cole back with the Patriots Drive podcast. And today we heard it all week that this is going to be the week that the Patriots are going to start interviewing for their offensive coordinator position. And it sounds like there's a couple front runners and a couple dark horses that are kind of creeping it up that were announced on Monday. So we're going to talk about a couple candidates and then talk about more of the obvious ones that we think are most likely to get the job and why we like them and would love to have them calling plays for Mac and the Patriots. But Cole, let's start off kind of a weird announcement today. About 5 hours ago, you said about potentially a college coach who's been in the NFL coming and being a candidate for the Patriots.
Yeah, so Georgia's offensive coordinator, it was tweeted today that he was looking for maybe some offensive coordinator opportunities in the NFL, and he was getting some buzz around him. So that is offensive coordinator Todd Monken from Georgia. So obviously he's done good things with that offense. That offense has been successful. Their defense is kind of what they've been known for, but with a guy like their 35-year-old quarterback in college who's putting up good numbers and doing good things, they've been able to have a good offense that's been balanced and leaning on the run game a little bit, but also having a good passing attack. So some people thought he might be a good candidate as far as the Patriots go. He'd bring some college styles, a little bit of flavor to the Patriots offense, something that we haven't had a lot of new ideas and new things come through this offense recently, especially with how bland the Patricia offense was this past season. So that might add a little spark of life to this offense and this scheme and the team in general.
Yeah, and Monken has not only been a great college coach, he's been in the NFL ranks. He was with the Jacksonville Jaguars from 2007 to 2010 as the receivers coach. Then he was with the Bucks from 2016 and 17 as the offensive coordinator and the wide receivers. Then he was just the offensive coordinator in 2018, and then the offensive coordinator for 2019 for the Browns. So before Georgia, he spent some time in the NFL. It's a guy that's, been around the league that people are aware of. And then, like you mentioned, a guy that's been very, very, very balanced with his passing and rushing attack. Now, Georgia has all the top dogs and the top players in college football, so it's easy to be. But what he did with Stetson Bennett, they don't have those top receivers. George Pickens was great last year. They don't have Alabama. They don't have Ohio State type of weapons. And he had a very, very good scheme. And they were rolling this year. They were averaging over 500 yards per game, like we mentioned, 290 passing and like 220 rushing per game. Very balanced numbers, very, very good numbers. And he has experience in the NFL calling plays. So that's something you look for when we talk about bringing in an external candidate who maybe New England isn't thinking of, but someone that still can replicate and has experience of calling plays in the NFL or even at the college ranks. And Todd Monken is a guy that has done that. And I don't know how likely it is. Sounds like they are bringing him in for an interview. Just, at least it gives us hope as Patriots fans that Bill's looking on the outside of things and not just to his coaching tree and people that, we are accustomed to seeing.
Yeah. So that would be interesting if they end up wanting to interview him and bring him in. Certainly would show a little bit of a different aspect of the process that we haven't seen. It's always been Bill's buddies, and if you're not one of Bill's close friends who he's coached with before or knows very well, then you're not really going to get you're not as likely to have an opportunity here with the Patriots, which is unfortunate because it brings a lot of the same tendencies and not a lot of new ideas. And I think that's something this offense could really use. So next guy who could be a possible promotion is tight ends coach Nick Caley. We've seen a lot of people around a league who have been with the Patriots before. McDaniels has a lot of respect for him. A lot of teams have been interested. The Jets are going to be one of the first to interview him, I believe, Thursday this week. So he's garnering interest around the league. And I'm assuming that if he does not get a promotion from the Patriots in some way, he's probably going to be gone and getting an opportunity as an offensive coordinator somewhere. So Scott Zolak reported that what he's hearing about the Patriots coaches is Nick Caley could be leaving if he does not get that promotion. Cam McCord, assistant special teams coach, Joe Judge, special teams coach, Matt Patricia, senior football advisor, and then Gerard Mayo, assistant head coach, which would be somewhat of a surprise. And that would kind of make sense why he has started to decline head coaching along with offensive coordinator interviews with other teams, which would be a big deal and certainly show that he's going to be the future of this football team after Belichick is ready to retire.
Yeah, and I think Nick Caley would be the only guy currently on the staff that I would interview for a potential offensive coordinator position. He deserves it. He's been there for 8 years, been coaching the tight ends for 6 years. We didn't get much production out of our tight ends this year. I don't know if that was Kaylee's fault or the scheme, because they were so good last season, and this year, with Patricia, they just did not have that production and that connection in the offense. So that would be the one guy I'd promote internally. Another guy that I'm looking at that's interesting, and I don't think that it's a very likely thing, because I think that maybe he's kind of the guy in waiting for the Los Angeles Rams, is going to be quarterbacks coach and pass game coordinator, Zach Robinson. This is a guy that has been under McVay. He has that he has experience in that type of offense. He's developed guys. Matthew Stafford, he's been around the game enough. He's been under McVay since 2019. So this is another guy that's just, it's an out-of-house guy that you could bring in, and he's young. He's going to have a different type of scheme than what New England has had previously, and it's possibly a guy that could come in, kind of revamp this offense, take Mac Jones under his wing, and develop him into something like he has with the Rams. So that's another one that I don't look at and say he makes a ton of sense. But if New England's looking out at guys like Todd Monken and other guys, maybe they bring in a young guy that's been under Sean McVay, and they try to bring in a young mind that can, bring some creativity to this offense.
Yeah, it would certainly be interesting to see him brought in here. Just like you said, that offensive scheme and that coaching tree has had success all over the NFL. So I would not be opposed at all to seeing, at least giving him an interview and seeing how they feel about his ideas and what he would see for this offense, the potential it has if you can maybe add another piece, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a later video or podcast. So that's certainly another idea. And then one of the last guys, kind of moving on to two of the top candidates, Cliff Kingsbury. He's a guy that we talked about on the podcast. You guys all were big fans of the idea of bringing him in. I think it would create an exciting type of offense for us, with kind of the more air raid offense, throwing the ball, but also incorporating a good run game. We saw that he certainly knows how to do that. James Conner had a good year. He was used out of the backfield well. That's something that Ramondre does well. I think he'd be a great candidate here to run this offense. And I think that it wouldn't take DeAndre Hopkins off the table. I think they've had a relationship before. Obviously, he has been coaching Hopkins for the past few seasons. And I don't think the bad blood was between him and Hopkins. I think it was more him and Kyler Murray and Hopkins. I think they were kind of the ones that were butting heads a little bit. So we did get some news on that. Apparently, it's rumored that he bought a one-way ticket to Thailand, I believe, and has been telling teams who have been calling him that he's not interested at this time. Things can change quickly. Things always change fast in the NFL. But at this time, it doesn't seem like he's going to take a job this year. And he has no real need to, because he's getting paid $7 million, I believe, for the next however many seasons from the Cardinals. So there's no real rush for him to get a coaching job and jump right back in. He can wait for the opportunity he wants and the one he's best fit for himself.
Yeah, and there's really no surprise that he's not eager to get back into the coaching realm right now. I mean, he went through the highest of highs in Arizona when they were one of the best teams in the NFL last year, and then Kyler Murray gets hurt, and then they kind of struggled this year with the DeAndre Hopkins suspension and whatever turmoil they had. So it doesn't surprise me with all the guaranteed money he has. But the reason I was so enticed with him, if you guys weren't for our on our latest live podcast, this is what I shared that I love about Cliff Kingsbury. One, he's going to bring the air raid style offense. Two, he has a track record of developing and calling quarterback friendly offenses. So when he was the co-offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach at Houston in 2011, Houston, this is the University of Houston, not the Texans, led the country in points per game with 50 and nearly 600 yards of total offense per game. Okay. So then he follows Kevin Sumlin to Texas A&M. So now he's just a straight OC. He coaches Johnny Manziel, who wins the Heisman. Texas A&M led the SEC in rushing, passing, and scoring per game. Then he gets promoted to the head coach at Texas Tech. He has Baker Mayfield there as a true freshman before he transfers. And then with Mahomes, he had the #1 offense in the country in 2016, averaging over 566 yards per game. 463 of those were passing and 43.5 points per game. So this is a guy that knows how to develop quarterbacks. He's developed quarterbacks at both college and the NFL. I know Kyler Murray had his struggles, but Kyler Murray was one of the best quarterbacks and the hardest quarterbacks to stop due to Cliff Kingsbury's scheme and the way he can scramble. But Cliff Kingsbury has a very, very, very good understanding of the new and improved air raid type of offenses. I think that he would be able to help Mac Jones develop into what Patriots fans see him developing into, and he'd be a lot better candidate to have DeAndre Hopkins come in than Bill O'Brien, which we're going to get into right now. But you want to talk about bringing in DeAndre Hopkins, I think that there's very slim chance if Bill O'Brien gets brought in, if Cliff Kingsbury's in there, I think that there's, at least a possibility. Real quick, guys, we'd like to thank today's sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. With Underdog's NFL Pick'em, they make it super easy to win big on any given night. They have individual player props or daily fantasy and are legal in 41 of the 50 states. Right now, they are doubling your first deposit up to $100 when you use code PATSDRIVE or use the link in the description. All you have to do is select higher or lower and submit your wager for as low as $1 to win anywhere from 3 times to 20 times your money. You can also compete against thousands in Underdog Fantasy's daily fantasy tournaments ranging anywhere from football to baseball to basketball. Whatever sport it is, there's a tournament for you. Now with Underdog's Pick'em Insurance, you can still win money even if one of your picks does not hit. So head over to UnderdogFantasy.com or download the Underdog app. Make sure to use code PATCHDRIVE or use the link in our description to get started today.
Which is, in my eyes, the reason that Kingsbury for me would be such a great fit, is because I think that leaves that on the table. And I think that's such a huge need. And he's the only guy that we know of at this moment who is available for trade and has the resume that he does. There's nobody else. The top ranked PFF receiver on the open market this year, Jacoby Myers. You bring him back, it's the same group you had last year. The next best guy, I think, is like Juju Smith-Schuster. It's a horrible wide receiver class. So if you're going to go and get somebody, you're either going to have to find somebody in the draft, which is always a risk, and it doesn't do anything for you right this moment necessarily. And the Patriots have had troubles developing receivers. And as you're going to see in another clip, I think there's some other positions that we could probably use more than receiver in the draft. You go get DeAndre Hopkins, that immediately adds a threat to the outside, something that teams have to game plan for. And I think Kingsbury and DeAndre Hopkins, we know they work together well, and we know D-Hop balled out this year when he was on the field. So I would love Kingsbury. I think he'd be a great fit. Moving on to the last guy, Bill O'Brien. Tom Curran reported this is the most likely, and it would be a surprise at this point if he does not end up with the job with the Patriots, which usually if Tom Curran says something like that, I think it's a pretty good inkling that there's something going on, and they're probably going to be moving in this direction, which I'm not opposed to either. I would much rather have Bill O'Brien than a guy like Matt Patricia or most of these candidates, to be honest. He has a relationship with the team. He coached here from 2007 to 2011, where the Patriots led the league in scoring with 30.7 points per game. And were second in total yards per game with 393.1. That is levels above what this offense was this year. Well, now granted, he had Tom Brady and Randy Moss. That's a little different. But if you can go get a guy like Hopkins and they can figure out their differences, this would be a great fit. You have your Randy Moss and DeAndre Hopkins. You have your Tom Brady and Mac Jones, who can kind of decipher a defense. And granted, they're both a step down from those players that I just mentioned. Obviously, I'm not comparing them as far as that goes, but you get a number one receiver and you get a competent quarterback. I think this would be a great situation for Mac. He's also worked with Bill O'Brien before. He helped him learn the Alabama offense. Mac taught Bill O'Brien the Alabama offense when he was leaving, which is good. They have a working relationship. They work together, and he's also been here before as a coach, so he knows what to expect. We know he has a good offense, and he's a smart football coach. So the only thing that drives me away from him a little bit is just the whole thing with DeAndre Hopkins. But if we're being honest with ourselves, how realistic is that in general? The Patriots never do something like this. I've gotten my hopes up a little bit because it's been such an abnormal offseason as far as the whole announcement goes of the Gerard Mayo thing and the OC search. So hopefully they can get Bill O'Brien and get DeAndre Hopkins and make it all work and make all Patriots fans happy. But he's definitely a great candidate, and I'd be happy with him as well.
Yeah, and the other thing that you think of when he was there from 07 to 2011 is how successful New England was with their two tight end sets. And it helps when you have Gronk and Aaron Hernandez, but you got two guys that are capable of being on the field and creating mismatches at any time. And they've been a little bit of a disappointment this year, Jonnu, since we've got him. But Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry, if Bill O'Brien can tap into them like he did with Gronk and Hernandez, and they're not the same type of players, but he can at least utilize them more than what we've seen, that's a huge plus. And you mentioned it, the relationship with Mac, the relationship with the ownership, it seems like it's a match made in heaven. And although I think there's that Cliff Kingsbury's the best, I still think that Bill O'Brien is right below him. And he underperformed a little bit at Alabama this year. But Alabama still averaged 41 points per game and 477 yards per game. Everyone's going to say Alabama underperformed when they're not making the college football playoffs, and they have the two of the best players coming back in college football, Will Anderson and Bryce Young. And, it's Alabama. So he's been very good. And the one thing that's going to take people away from him is, how it ended in Houston and stuff like that. I have no problem with that because he's not coming in to be the head coach. You assume Gerard Mayo is going to be the head coach in waiting. So you say Bill O'Brien's not coming in to be the next Patriots head coach after Bill Belichick leaves. He's coming in to be the Patriots offensive coordinator, to develop Mac Jones and to get this offense back on track. And I think that, like I mentioned, it's a match made in heaven, and it makes too much sense. Although they're interviewing other guys, Todd Monken, other guys like that, it just seems like this is the one that they're gravitated to. And we're starting to hear reports as the process started that Bill O'Brien is the guy that ownership wants, that the whole Patriots organization is really eyeing in on. And that this is the guy that, is there at the top of their list. So it'll be interesting to see how long it takes. If it happens, I hope it happens sooner rather than later. We will know by the Shrine Bowl, I believe, when the Patriots coaching staff is coaching that, because you have to have a set coaching staff by then. So we should have some news coming up here in the upcoming weeks, hopefully days.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he would be a great candidate, and I agree with you there with your stance on the whole Kingsbury and Bill O'Brien thing. It would be great to see this offense finally. And I think he's a guy that, like some of these younger guys, some of these newer coaches, I think Belichick would still be involved in a way, as opposed to Bill O'Brien. This is his offense. He knows how to run it. He's been here before. He's been a head coach. He knows the NFL. He's not going to come here and let Belichick be picking apart his whole thing. He's going to bring his operation and his offense here. Obviously, he's going to talk to the head coach, and they're going to have their back and forths with ideas and stuff. I'm not saying he's going to shut off any communication and not take ideas, but he's going to run his offense. He's going to know how to say no to Belichick and run what he thinks is best. At the end of the day, he's the offensive coordinator if he gets hired here. And I would be really excited to see this offense taken over by Bill O'Brien. We haven't seen him here in a while, and we haven't seen this offense be super successful over the past 365 days. So some fresh blood who also has some familiarity with the quarterback and the head coach and the offense in general, as far as the Patriots go. I would love that.
Yeah, I think all Patriots fans would. So make sure that you guys like, subscribe, and comment which one of these candidates you think's the most likely, or who you'd like to see personally as your number one candidate. Turn on the notification bell and use code PATCHDRIVE at underdogfantasy.com to get your first deposit matched up to $100. And make sure you guys tune in next time for either a clip or live on Thursday night. And we'll talk to you next time.